It's a meeting that will decide on the leadership of the world's largest country and second largest economy in the next decade. The 19th Communist Party Congress kicks off tomorrow. And here's why it's important and why you should know about it and why we're talking about it here on, First Word. First, a little bit on what happens in that meeting. So roughly about 3,000 delegates will attend that 19th Congress. This is to elect members to the Central Committee, the Politburo, and the Politburo Standing Committee. The Politburo Standing Committee being at the top of the food chain in terms of politics in China, below which you've got the Politburo, and then you've got the Central Committee, which is much larger. Now, here's what's key and here's what's important. There are many elections happening in all these three branches of the party. But the most important one is that reports are suggesting that about 5 to 7 of the standing committee members are likely to retire and therefore get replaced. And who Xi Jinping replaces them with will tell us a little bit more about how he is looking to consolidate power as he begins his second term in China as the head of the political party, not just the premier. So what can you expect over the course of the next several days? They don't define a period as to how long this Congress will go on for. I think last time it happened in 2012, it went on for about 8 days is what I remember. So this could be anywhere, a week, 8 days. It starts tomorrow. And, I think here are 2 or 3 things that I've gathered from all the reading I've done, all the intelligence reports that are out there on China, on what you can expect. So firstly, will Xi Jinping indicate a successor of any sort? And this is going to be critical. Remember, he was appointed, I think, this is the 16th, I think, yeah. The 16th Congress is when, 17th Congress is when he was appointed as successor. He took over after the 18th Congress, which was in 2012 was when the 18th Congress happened. 2013 is when he took over. And so now is the time, as he begins his second term, for him to indicate a successor, if he intends to indicate a successor or not. If he doesn't indicate a successor, this may suggest that he might be setting the stage for a third term. Now, there is a lot that goes against him when it comes to the third term. There is a retirement age that plays out. There's the unspoken rule of only 2 terms, but this is concentration of power. And we've seen Xi Jinping only go from strength to strength in the Chinese political system. So nobody's really very sure on what he will try and achieve in this. And the reason we're talking about this is because, look, China plays such an important role in the global economy today. It plays such an important role in geopolitics today. So will he appoint a successor? That's one. The second thing we'll find out is whether he intends to maybe issue is not the right word, but to formulate a Xi Jinping doctrine. Now, there's a history to this. Mao Zedong had done that, and the doctrine was named on Mao. And then you had Deng Xiaoping do it, and their successors also did it, but only Mao and Deng had the doctrine named after themselves. So it is quite clear that he will spell out a doctrine, which is the Xi Jinping philosophy of life, or politics, if I may put it simply. But whether he calls it Xi Jinping something will sort of determine where he sees himself in the rank of historic leaders in China. So is he going to try and equate himself with Mao in any fashion is what everybody is looking out for. So that's important. What will happen on the economy agenda? There were a couple of things that they decided in the last one that all played out, right? So China said that they were going to work a little bit more harder on, sort of environmental protection. We've seen that play out in the Chinese economy over the last 5 years, especially in the way they've approached manufacturing, etc. They did say that they were going to look at, working towards becoming more of a market economy. Again, we've seen that play out over the last 5 years. So what's expected of the economic agenda? And we'll know right up front tomorrow, because all of this is laid out in the very first speech that Xi Jinping gives out. We're expecting to hear on the role of the market in the continuing growth of the Chinese economy. There is an expectation that the emphasis on GDP growth, which has been very high in China over the last couple of decades, might now start to wane as they look towards more sustainable growth. And this is a narrative that's been playing out in China over the last few years already. So as they look towards more sustainable growth, they might look to de-emphasize the GDP growth numbers from the 7+% that they've been doing to now the 7, -%. Deleveraging, I think corporate debt's been a big conversation in China. So we'll see if anything happens on that front. The state-owned enterprises, the role they play in the economy, all of this continues to be on the agenda, and we're waiting to see, what policies Xi Jinping will set in his very first speech, which will then become the policy document and the key architecture for economic policy over the next 5 years. So this is how critical the party is. This is really the most important thing that China witnesses once every 5 years, which is why we're giving it so much time this morning and forcing you to listen through to all of this. And finally, here's one more thing that we expect will come out over the next few days. They may not make an official announcement, but there's a very good chance that the selection of the new central bank chief in China will happen over the next few days. The announcement might only just come in March, April, May next year, but the selection might in fact get done in the next few days itself. And that's going to be critical because the current serving chief is the longest serving chief I think any central bank has seen anywhere in the world. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. Here's an expert voice on what to expect from that 19th Congress. Cornell University Professor Eswar Prasad, and a very well-known China expert, believes that it's more important to watch what comes out after the meeting rather than just the meeting. Here's the conversation that he had with Bloomberg.
What comes after the party congress is going to be far more important than what happens at the party congress itself. The question is whether Xi Jinping will reveal his true stripes. Now, the presumption is that he's going to consolidate his power both on the economic and political and military fronts. How he uses that power, whether he's going to push forward reforms more aggressively or roll back to a more state-dominated stance for the economy, is what remains to be seen. And we will start to see glimpses of that in terms of the appointments that are made, both in the Standing Committee of the Politburo, the top policy-making body, but also in the coming weeks and months, we'll start seeing appointments at the major regulatory agencies. And there might be some reshuffling of those appointments, including an appointment at the People's Bank of China, the central bank. So those are going to be very important omens of what is going to come in terms of economic reforms or lack thereof.